Hi everyone. Good evening or afternoon or morning, depending on where you're joining us from today. It's evening my time. It's lovely to see everyone. At 7 o'clock when it's like 30 minutes to, I started seeing a few people in the waiting room. So I'm excited that everybody's as eager as I am to have this conversation and learn from the legendary Seth Godin today. Hi Seth, hope you're doing good.
I'm with you. How could I not be good?
That's a really good answer. I was thinking, or when I was reflecting just before I got on the call today, that the last time that I saw you video was 4 years ago. Yes. The first one was it was May
Sorry.
2020. Is
That's my fault. That's terrible.
no, but this is good. It's so much progress since then. And I know we've spoken like a handful of times, so it's good to catch up on video again. And thank you for saying yes again to this.
Happy to.
Awesome. So we'll get right into it, right? We have almost 60 people who are joining this webinar. Um, Today's conversation, we're going to spend like an hour and we just want to talk through a lot of things. Fantastic. Let me ask my first question. First of all, question one, what's on your mind the most these days?
Possibility. Um, you know, a lot of people got sick during COVID. The world was upside down. There's still a lot of trauma and strife. But between AI, tech progress, and things finding their footing, we have the chance to do important work. It's possible. It's easy to talk ourselves out of it. It's
Yeah.
easy to put it off, but I try to remind myself every day I don't get today over again. So how am I going to show up to do something worth doing?
That's fantastic. Thank you. That's such a great way to start. And it takes me to like my next question. I was reading something that you wrote many years ago about resilience. And I think you said you can't always figure out the right thing to do and you don't always know what is coming, but you always see yourself to show up every day. So can you talk a little bit more about resilience, especially to leaders? Because a lot of people who are joining here, they're business leaders, they're founders. What does resilience look like right now?
Yeah. So I think that you're asking two things. Showing up every day, we can talk about that, but I don't think that's what resilience is.
Mm,
I think resilience means realizing that everything we're doing is at some level a game and you want to be able to play again tomorrow.
mm.
And so you don't want to put all your chips on the table because if you bet everything and you lose, you don't get to play tomorrow. So, a way of thinking about this is making sure you leave yourself a foundation, making sure you leave yourself an out, a chance to be able to say, this one didn't work. I'm going to do something else tomorrow.
And how does that differ from showing up? You said there were two different things.
Well, so what's the alternative to showing up every day, right? It's the alternative is ending up in the funeral home. So we're going to do something tomorrow.
Yeah.
Can we commit in advance? So I've written 9,000 blog posts in a row. There will be a blog post from me tomorrow, not because it's the best blog post I ever wrote, but because it's Thursday. So I made that decision 20 years ago, and I don't have to make it again. What it means to show up every day is to decide today that every day from now on, you're going to show up. Then you don't have to think about it anymore.
That level of consistency set can be very hard. Sometimes you
I
can
didn't say any of this was easy.
yeah, but how do you get going? Like when you think about consistency, and I have to show up and do the same thing, even when there are many other things in life. I have a business to run, I have people to pay, I have a job to get done. How do we get ourselves to actually make sure that we wake up the next morning and we're consistent?
Well, Peace, what did you have for lunch today?
Rice.
Like me, every day. Um, if we skip lunch, it's a very big deal. We tell everyone, I was so busy, I skipped lunch. We committed from early age to eat lunch every day.
Mm.
That's just what we do. We commit every day to brush our teeth. We commit every day. Right? There's all these things we do every day. So to add one or two others, that every day you're going to send someone a thank you note, that every day you're going to find somebody who needs connection and offer them visibility, that every day you're going to come up with an idea that might not work. That's not so bad. It's easier than lunch.
That's a really good answer. you talked once about choosing your fuel, and this feels
Choosing
very
your
your fuel, your fuel. So
fuel, yes.
yeah, choosing your fuel. So and you made a list of so many different things that you have to decide, like, this is why I'm doing it. And it
Mhm.
feels very linked to this conversation we're having right now. So could you throw some light on that as well?
Well, I think what I was talking about with the fuel is if you are motivated by anger and revenge, it will get you going, but it
Mm,
doesn't burn very well. It leaves a residue. If you are motivated by generosity and possibility, it's a lot harder to get going, but it pays off in dividends and makes it so you can get going again tomorrow. So when you see someone driving in traffic, weaving in and out and honking all the time, they're totally in it, but they're not going to live that long.
generosity. Someone is asking in the comments that what has changed in the last 10 years with marketing, and how can companies continue to attract and retain attention?
Well, I hope people already know the answer. The thing that has changed the most is that attention is even harder to get than it used to be, and that trust is even harder to get than it used to be. So a lot of companies that do marketing wasted trust and attention. It was just all around them. They just wasted it. They burned people. If you've ever called a company for tech support and they put you on hold for 10 minutes and they tell you they've changed their phone tree and then they put you on hold some more, they're wasting your attention. What an opportunity in this moment when someone cares to actually pick up the phone and talk to them. So as we see more and more value in trust and attention, I hope we will not waste it.
Seth, I have a marketing question about the purple cow, right? I think you've talked about people having to do remarkable work, but my question is there a point where it becomes increasingly impossible to do to have a purple cow, right? There's a lot of competition these days. Um, is there a point where you really cannot upgrade the purple cow that you have and it becomes obsolete?
Okay, there's a lot of misunderstanding about this. Remarkable doesn't mean a gimmick. Remarkable doesn't mean a hack. Remarkable means worth making a remark about. If someone talks about you, they're doing it because it's good for them, not because it's good for you. That's always been difficult. It's going to get more difficult, but people are still going to talk about something. So, what can we create to fill that void, right? So, people used to talk about Michael Jordan sneakers. Now they talk about the OC woven monofilament sneakers. It's harder and harder to build something worth talking about, but that is the only way for an idea to spread.
Okay. Okay. I have another question, and it has to do with the idea of lock-in. I think you've talked about that also. Recently, I was trying to get AirPods, right, for my ears to listen to like sound, and I used to use the Apple AirPods, but I didn't want to get the AirPods anymore. So I go to the store and I am looking at the features of other AirPods there, and I just could not buy other AirPods. It was frustrating. I did not want to buy the AirPods from Apple, but I had to buy the AirPods from Apple. So my question is there some ethical line with lock-in when you're doing your marketing and or your product development so that you want to be careful to not cross the ethical lines? Does it not feel like being trapped? And if the users or the customers feel trapped, is that a good thing for the brand?
Okay, so I'll start by saying I've been an Apple customer for more than 30 years and I don't have earbuds. So it's possible. But leaving that aside, my friend Cory Doctorow has written about something called enshittification. And it was the Oxford Dictionary Word of the Year last year. What it means is companies get venture money, they build a network, they get lock in, and then they start making things worse for their users to make a profit. And this has happened to Facebook, it's happened to Google, it's happened to, you can go down the list. I don't think that's ethical, and I would not be proud to do it. The question is, how do we distinguish that from the fact that the reason you couldn't buy a different pair was not because there wasn't a different pair available. It's because Apple put so much goodness into the interaction that you were spoiled. I think I could argue that that is in your interest. We want there to be competition. What we don't want is the misery of searching on Amazon now. Because Amazon knows you have no other choices. So they made it worse and worse and worse. They're not doing that for you. They're doing it against you. I'm pretty sure that Apple's not making the earbuds against me. And so that's where I would draw the line.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions. So I'm going to take some marketing ones and go back to the initial one. Someone said, with so many brands competing in the same space, what are some of the most effective strategies for standing out and creating something truly remarkable?
Yes, I don't think you want to stand out. I think you want to be of service. That if you are of service and someone benefits themselves by talking about you, they will. And there's never been an easier time to do that because there's so many people who need so many things. If you're in a stuck category like running shoes, that's hard. But if you say, I can make anything, go find people who will gain status by talking about you and give them something worth talking about.
Make something that makes people talk about you and be of service. Thank you. So Amem said, you have discussed the idea of playing it safe as being risky. As a Nigerian startup founder, we face the tension between embracing new technologies like AI and relying on proven traditional methods that our market is comfortable with. How would you advise founders in emerging markets like Nigeria to use AI to push boundaries in marketing without alienating a customer base that might be slow to adopt digital transformation? Is there anything from your experience in dealing with other emerging markets?
You can't do both at the same time. We're not trying to change the audience. We're trying to serve the audience. So there are people in Nigeria who want the new thing, the effective thing, the fresh thing. They want to pioneer. If you make something for them, you cannot insist that Granny in some village is going to be excited about it. She's not, right? That if we look at how a technology like digital currency was adopted in Kenya via SafariCon, the first people who used SafariCon were not the same as the last people who used SafariCon. And so you got to pick. And if you want to be an innovator, you have to give permission to the people who don't get the joke and say, sorry, it wasn't for you. Right? And so there are very few people on this call who own one of these. I only made 5,000. I only made 5,000 of these. But the people who got one, it was for them. And the people who are just now hearing about Purple Cow, it's too late. Sorry, there aren't any left. So pick who it's for and cater to them.
Thank you. Back to some of the initial conversations that we had. Faith said, how do you find your why? And he said the context is he's written a Substack for 22 consecutive weeks. He writes every Sunday. But then it became a routine, so he stopped. Now he misses the consistency because he's been writing spontaneously since then. So what is your own why for writing every day? And how did you find him?
So my friend Simon and I don't always agree on this. I don't think you should spend a lot of time trying to find your why. I think you should be very clear about who it's for and what it's for. But I don't care if it's your passion. I don't care if it lights you up. Professionals decide to like what they do. Amateurs want to do what they like. So be a professional, be clear about who you're serving, the change you seek to make, and decide to like that.
I feel like I should get up and do a lot of stuff every day now. Let's talk about personal branding. And this is a conversation that we had very recently in the Black Widows community. And someone said, shared a quote that said, build it and, people would actually come. And we ended up talking around, personal brands with founders, how important is this to have an audience, a community? What are your thoughts around that? Is personal branding still really critical today for people who are building companies and who want to serve others? Is building an audience first or community still a really good approach to start with?
What do you think a brand is, Peace?
think your brand is your story and how people think about you, and it's everything.
Exactly. A brand is the promise you make and the expectation people have. So everyone has a brand or they're invisible. Those are the only two options. That's it, right? So a personal brand isn't your social media presence. Your social media presence might remind people of your brand, but Peace's brand is a resilient, relentless, charismatic connector of people around the world who are trying to make things better. That's her brand. That's what I expect, right? So when Peace sends me an email, I write back to her because I know what your brand is. I have never followed you online. I have no idea what you look like online. I don't care. That ought to be a reflection of who you want to be seen as, of the promise you want to make. But don't get hung up on how you look online. I don't care.
Thank you. As you're talking, I keep thinking, so it takes me a second to ask this question.
That's okay. I can't talk that
But
fast. It's all
I
good.
have a question though. It has to do with the deep, right? I think a lot of us have been here where, you're persevering through something, there's this challenge, and you're like, when do you decide to quit? When do you decide that you're not just waiting out the deep and being stubborn in the face of a very, a failing idea?
Okay. So my book, The Dip, is only 96 pages long. And what I say in the book is this: anything that's of value, that's worth doing, probably has a dip, because if it didn't, everyone would do it. So becoming a doctor has a dip. It's hard to get through organic chemistry. It's hard to get into medical school. These are things you should expect if you want to be a doctor. If you could be a doctor in 5 minutes, everyone would be a doctor and it wouldn't be worth anything. So the first rule is, don't start something unless you're prepared to go through the dip. Don't join the gym to get in shape in January and quit in February. Everyone quits in February because that's when it gets hard, right? So when the dip comes, say, great, the dip is here. I'm ready for you. But sometimes it's a dead end. It's not a dip. There is no other side. This is where, you get lung cancer and you keep smoking. You can't smoke your way through lung cancer. You're done. So the question I would ask is, has anyone else ever gotten through this dip? Has anyone else in my shoes ever gotten from here to there? Now, that doesn't mean you always have to have a model. Someone might break every rule and win. I hope that you can be one of those magic people. But in general, I think you're better off not being the first one who ever did it. Saying, I see the path. I will follow the path because I see where the dip is and I know I can get to the other side.
I really like the first rule you shared, that expect that there would be a dip and be prepared for it. So when it comes, you're like, let's get going. Talking about rules, what would you say is the first, second, and third rule for building a tribe, building a community?
What's the first one?
I'm asking.
Oh, I thought you said you wanted the second and third.
No, I want the first, second, and third. So
I see.
keep
Okay.
1, 2, and 3.
Got it. The first one is, they're not your tribe. They don't belong to you. Your job is to find a group of people who are waiting to be connected, not to connect to you, but to connect to each other. The second one is to intentionally create tension, insiders and outsiders. This is what it's like around here. You can't be part of this because you're not going along with what we believe is a good standard. And then the third one is figure out how to create scaffolding, small promises that can be kept over and over and over again so that it becomes expected that progress will happen.
Amazing stuff. We have a question here, and the person says, how do you build retention and revenue side by side for a very new service?
Steve Blank has said that customer traction is everything. If you don't have retention, I don't believe you have anything. it's cheaper to keep a customer than to get a new one. So that's not the same as saying everyone has to like it. If someone doesn't want to go where you're going, they tried it anyway, don't try to keep them. Say, thanks, there's the door. But if someone wants to go where you're going and you're not able to keep them, something's wrong.
Fantastic. Tega, do you have a question?
Oh yeah, the smallest viable audience, right? Let's talk about that for a bit. How do you know that you found that audience?
When you pick the smallest viable audience, it's up to you. You pick them. If you can't make them happy, you have to pick a different group or make better stuff. If you encounter someone who's not in the smallest viable audience and they don't like what you made, you should forgive them and tell them it's not for them. But if you meet someone who is in the smallest viable audience and they don't like what you made, you need to make something better.
Did that really answer the next question I was going to ask, where somebody said, if you choose them, what's the best way to choose the people that you serve? And then what happens when you make the wrong choice the first time?
Yeah, make a new choice.
Make a new choice. And even if you have low funds, because that was the second part of the question.
Well, don't take on a project that you can't afford. You have to make sure you have enough funds before you start to be wrong. Because if you insist on being right, now you don't have any empathy.
That's a good point. In the ecosystem where we work, right, in emerging markets, raising capital as a founder is not the easiest thing. It is very hard. And so a lot of founders and builders need to get traction before they also have that capital. So if I take your last answer and say pick a project that you have the funds, but what if they can't get access to capital? So they don't build like a problem that is built for a problem that you're really passionate about?
So let's say I want to do community action in a small village or a slum.
Yeah.
I could say, I need to raise 1,000,000 shillings because I have to build a building, I have to hire staff, I have to do this, I have to do this. And you can't raise the money, so then you don't help anybody. Or you could get one soccer ball and start a soccer league, 4 games a day. And if you've got 100 kids playing soccer in your league every single day, now you've started something and it only costs you $20. Tomorrow, you could figure out how to raise enough money to get one more soccer ball. And then. The goal is not to count on some rich fat cat to give you all the money you need to solve the biggest problem you can imagine. The goal is to solve the smallest problem you can imagine in a way that lets you do it again tomorrow.
Well, that's probably the way that makes you do it again tomorrow. That's fantastic. What makes a really great leader, and how do they build really great cultures for their companies?
So what do you think, Peace?
I think it's a mix of having a clear vision to be able to lead people so they know where they're going, but also empathy and leading them with authenticity and truth.
Yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't say authenticity. I don't care about authenticity.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think anybody cares about authenticity. You know, if you went to see your favorite musician and they were having a very bad day, do you want them to play poorly or do you want them to play like the best version of themselves? Right?
Yeah.
That when we think of the great leaders of our time from around the world, do we want to see them right after they had a fight with their spouse, or do we want them to act like the leader we know they're capable of being? Consistency. You want to figure out what you stand for and show up that way, not be authentic.
The last time we had a conversation, one of the biggest lessons that I left was the value of authenticity. You talked about it in personal
I did
brand.
not say that. You should go look at the recording. I have never said that.
No, I mean, you didn't say it specifically to leadership, but we talked about personal branding and you talked about generosity and showing up authentically. And is that different
I
from
talked about generosity and showing up with resilience and care consistently. I have never said that people should be authentic because it's a trap. Because it gives you permission to be a jerk. I'm just being authentic, just telling you what I think. Yeah, go away. Come back when you're ready to be a professional.
That's fantastic. Tega?
I think he answered the question. I was going to talk about empathy in leadership, right? But I think he's answered the question.
Okay, should
But
I?
there's a question in the comment that I see that I think is interesting. As a brand strategist from Emmanuel Oga, as a brand strategist that desires to stand out in a competitively aggressive market, what is your advice about original ideas, but with short time frame to materialize because of a volatile market?
Well, who told you you should sign up for a hyper competitive market? Right? You get to pick your market. Don't complain.
Mhm.
Pick your customers, pick your future. If you want to compete in a market with well-funded people who are going very fast, you better be prepared to be well-funded and go very fast. I can't solve that problem for you.
To pick your market and just like you anticipate the dip and know what you're getting
Yeah,
into
I
with
mean,
it.
if you're going to make MRIs and CAT scans, don't complain about bureaucracy and insurance, because that's what goes with making MRI and CAT scans.
What is your top three advice for someone who has decided to build a career in sales and marketing?
Well, first I would ask which one of those two things are you building a career in?
Let's go with marketing.
So, the number one thing is to do marketing. Don't try to get a job as a junior intern. Find a thing worth marketing. It can be a cause, a political campaign, a product, a garage sale. I don't care. The way you learn marketing is by doing marketing. Second thing is empathy. You are not marketing to yourself. You already know what the thing is. You're marketing to someone else. Who are they? What do they believe? What do they want? What do they dream of? And the third thing is, uh, what are you measuring? If you measure the wrong things, you will get the wrong things.
Sure. Sure. Um, how do you deal with the fear of failing again, even after failing to build a startup or whatever?
Right. Fear of failure is real. You can't make it go away,
Yeah.
but you can dance with it. You can name it. In my case, at least once a day, I do something and then say, this might not work. If you're not prepared to say, this might not work, then you're not really innovating.
Temitope is
I have a
asking. Sorry, Tega. Okay.
Okay, so I was going to say that I have a question for Seth. It's a question I usually ask people that I have learned a lot from over the years. It's over the years, are there any ideas of yours relating to brand building, marketing that right now have evolved or changed in some way?
The fundamental building blocks of what I said, I haven't changed very much. I do believe the internet is not as kind or as open as I hoped.
Hmm.
I do believe that there are more spammers, scammers, and people with ill intent around than I hoped. And I do understand that we have to go to more meetings and get more approvals than I hoped. But the basic theories of what I'm talking about haven't changed very much.
Thank you. Please, you're going to ask something from top there.
Yes, Temitope was asking. He said, in finding the right customer segment and truly building products that solve customer pain points, product leaders often speak about solving for the job to be done. And
Mm-hmm.
as marketing professionals, how do you find that job to be done or get potential users to share their pain points to be solved for? It's a good
Right.
question.
So this comes from Clayton Christensen, and I have no idea where you live and if they have a lot of McDonald's there. But in the United States, McDonald's serves 1 out of every 7 meals in the entire country. And they hired Clayton's firm to figure out what to do about breakfast. And what they did was they stood at McDonald's and watched people order breakfast. What they saw is a lot of people were ordering a milkshake for breakfast. So, does everyone know what a milkshake is? Should
Yes.
I explain? Okay. So, what are you doing eating a milkshake for breakfast? Like, your mother would not be proud of this. So they started to ask people who were buying milkshakes for breakfast, why are you buying a milkshake for breakfast? And finally, what they figured out is the job to be done is how can I get a reasonably nutritious thing to eat while driving that won't make my clothes dirty? That was the job to be done. And once McDonald's understood that, they could lean into this opportunity at breakfast and help people get what they wanted, which is food without mess while driving. That's the job to be done. The best way I know to do that is to watch what people do. Don't ask them, just watch. Watch them use a spreadsheet for 5 minutes and realize they don't know how to use the formulas. Why are you even using the spreadsheet? It makes everything look nice and neat, right? What are the jobs to be done here? Well, what are people using to get the job done now? That's probably the job to be done.
Watch. Tega?
Yeah, a question from the community last week. Can marketing ever be too much?
Often.
Often.
Marketing is two things,
How?
remember? Marketing is the story we tell. It can't be too much of that. But marketing is also the noise, the interruption, the hype, all that stuff that your boss thinks of as marketing. And it's quite likely there's too much of that.
Yeah, and this is very related to the interruption marketing versus permission marketing.
Exactly.
And I think we are in an era where growth hacking is such a thing. Do you think that growth hacking is at odds with permission marketing, considering the fact that permission marketing requires a lot of patience and time?
Okay, so most people who use the phrase growth hacking are selfish hustlers. The kind of growth hacking that Andrew Chen was talking about was how do you build a product that has a network effect built in? That's the right kind of growth hacking. So right now we're talking on Zoom, right? I was one of the first users of Zoom. You can't use Zoom by yourself. It doesn't work. There's no one to talk to. So I had to invite Peace to talk to me via Zoom. Everyone on this call is using Zoom because someone invited you. That's growth hacking, right? To build a product that works better if I invite my friends.
So basically, product-led growth is more
Bingo.
in line with permission. Right, makes sense. I have a question from the chat here. Somebody says, I think building communities is overrated. What do you think about that?
I think we should kick that person out of this community.
I don't disagree. um, so
Yes.
James Praise is asking, he says, if the thing that you're marketing is a newsletter where you provide resources, templates, data for marketers and founders, what is the right thing to measure?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to reach more people, I would want to know how often is the newsletter forwarded to other folks. If the goal is to actually make it a business, I would measure how many people send me a donation or subscribe for money, right? If the goal is user engagement, I would measure how many emails do I get from my readers. If the goal is being of substance over time, I would look at the churn rate. So each one of these things is a different metric based on what you want.
So depends on what you're doing or what you're optimizing for.
Yeah.
Regina Clarkson is asking, she said, thanks for your service, Seth. And she says, do you think that you have deeply lived your life's mission? And how have you stayed in touch with your core values from over the years, even though you've accomplished so many things?
Well, that's very kind of you. I don't have a life's mission. That's like back to the start with why, passion, authenticity thing. I have days. I have a finite number of days. How can I use them? How can I build assets that will let me use them better? How can I be missed if I'm gone? How can I teach people things that they teach other people? I have projects. How can I build projects that let me build more projects? I have made quite a ruckus, but I am not nearly as known or successful as some people think I am, which is fine with me. The vast majority of people in my country, never mind the whole world, have never heard of me. That's fine. I'm not trying to serve everyone. I'm trying to make a difference for someone.
These projects are making a difference every day, and it might change day by day.
Yeah.
Someone here is asking, what are you most afraid of for the future?
There are lots of things to be afraid of. The thing that is the most certain to happen that I feel really powerless about is climate change. I don't think the people on this call realize just how devastating it's going to be and just how much bad behavior it will bring about. And I'm working on it, but I can't do it by myself. Mostly for me personally, I am afraid of missing a chance to be of service to someone who matters. I am afraid of saying no too often. I'm afraid of squandering my chance. And I would like to avoid that. I can't avoid it, but I'll do my best.
Thank you for that beautiful answer. Tega, we have like 5 more minutes, so we can take one question from you, maybe one from me as well.
These are great questions, by the way. Great.
I saw a question here. Just hold on for a bit. Let me pull it out. What's your experience with solving the market chasm, driving other user adoption after the first user? Yeah.
Right. So the chasm is only crossed when your users tell their friends, not when you tell their friends. If your users aren't bringing people along, your product needs to be improved. Right? So my new book, which comes out in a few weeks, I will sell the first 10,000 copies through my own effort. But after that, if the readers of the book don't tell their friends, I needed to write a better book.
Thank you, Seth. There's this long question I'm trying to read here. It says
I have
the
one.
best
So go ahead.
okay, the best performance marketing is done with quite a bit of tracking to better understand customer behavior and how to get more of your best customers. But the core of Web3 is decentralization based off anonymity. So it has been hard trying to push. Is this a question or
Okay,
it's quite
let me
long?
try to. Here's the deal. The most important performance marketing is not done that way. Because if you do that, you get caught up in false proxies. The best performance marketing is done by finding the right proxy, the simple measurement that doesn't invade people's privacy, that lets you understand whether you found the right audience and whether they're telling their friends. It's not complicated. It's just challenging because people are afraid.
I have like 5 brilliant questions, but I'll pick.
I'm sorry, Peace. I'm really fading. Let's just do one or two more, and then I
Yeah,
really
so we'll do
go.
1 or 2 more. We'll go. What do you think is the biggest opportunity that the creator economy offers the businesses and creators that businesses and creators are currently ignoring?
Well, with apologies to that person who asked about community, the biggest opportunity is building community. The biggest opportunity is finding people who need to be connected and connecting them.
Final question. Probably more personal for me. I'm in a space right now where I'm thinking about 2025. I feel like I'm next year. Like the year's wrapping down. I'm doing reflection. I'm thinking about what do I want to do differently next year? How do we kind of set goals? So if you wanted to leave me and everybody here who is thinking about planning for businesses for their work, to do better next year, what would that last message be for us today?
In the backyard of my house is a tree. It's 20 feet tall, and it puts shade in exactly the right spot for when I'm working on my canoe. And if I needed to replace that tree, it would cost me an enormous amount of money. Or I could plant seeds today and I would get that tree for free in 10 years. So if you want to understand how to spend your time, create the conditions for the trees you need to grow. Do not try to find a shortcut. Plant seeds, water them, fertilize them, watch them grow. First year of my blog, I had 100 readers. That's all. You don't get started with 1 million. Start with 100. Plant seeds and water them. Okay. And the second rule is, if peace tells you to do something, you should do it.
I should tell myself that when I decide to do something, I should stick to it. Seth, thank you so much for having this conversation with me again. I know you have to go. I hope your voice gets better and you can finish reading your book. Hopefully we get to do this again. Less than 4 years difference this time. But thank you so much again. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you both. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Go make a ruckus, everybody. Bye-bye.
If you want to join the Black Readers Network, please apply and we will look through your application and you can join the community. There's an amazing amount of people here who are building from all over the world who are Africans or Black descent. So it's a fantastic opportunity to join, if I do say so myself. Okay, thanks everyone and bye-bye.